Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Down in the Country podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Reed, and today we are joined with Levi Foster, who's an up and coming country music artist. Levi, thank you again so much again for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Good to
No,
be here.
we're glad you're here. And so, to start off the conversation, Marty Robbins and Merle Haggard are two artists that have had a big influence in shaping your identity as a country music artist. And what do those two men mean to you, and how do you incorporate them into your music?
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, was just kind of steeped in classic country music, and all the stories and the storytellers of those days, really resonated with me. Um, they kind of, helped me to go through life with that lens and kind of know how where I wanted to go with my music. And
Mhm. So you talk about the thematic elements of it. Is there anything like written or any like particular songs that those two men have did in the past that you're like, oh well, I like this riff that he does, or oh, I like the writing style is, or is was it just life experiences for you?
Sure. Well, I think that Haggard is known as the poet of the common man,
Uh
and
huh.
saying lots of things within a song with real simple language. I feel is a hard contrast to get in a song to
Hmm.
where it can resonate with anybody listening, whether it's a brick mason or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. They're going to feel that human emotion within
Hmm.
the story of the song.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And as an example, so your latest single, Walter, will be released on February 21st. And so, could you provide an intro for that song?
Sure. Yeah. So um, the people I wrote it with is Sabrina Stewart and Court Taylor, and we had written several songs before this song, and just in passing or in the room, we'd talk about our experiences with family members or people we knew who suffered from Alzheimer's and just how terrible a disease that is. And we decided then the next time we write, we're going to write a song about Alzheimer's. And the day we were writing it, we kind of decided we should write it from the perspective of the man with Alzheimer's. And, we haven't heard a song that has that take on it before. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a story about a man with Alzheimer's going through his life from his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of uncovering, you know, what has been missing lately. So you're uncovering the pieces of his life that are kind of falling in place as he's, discovering things, what he's forgotten. So
Oh wow. So you really want the listener to have their brain inside the brain of someone that is suffering from Alzheimer's.
right. Which is a weird concept, but I think it turned out great because it's from an angle that hasn't been written from before. So,
Hmm.
and it also moves the story along. So it's a first person, but you're still kind of getting that omnipresent feel of the set and setting and everything.
Hmm. And what was the writing, recording, cutting process like for that single?
Oh, that was great. We laid it down really fast. Recorded here in Nashville at Mystic Studios, and we did one take, and I went back and sang the vocals over top of it, and it's very, very simple production, kind of reminiscent of some Don Williams songs, to where it leaves a lot of room for the vocal in the story. So there's nothing flashy instruments going on. It's just kind of a solid foundation for a country song.
And when y'all went in to record at Mystic, did you guys have like an idea of what you wanted it to sound like? Because I know it seems like it's very different from what you envisioned writing the song to actually recording it.
Well, I had that song in my back pocket, and we were going in to record another song, and then we finished early on that song, so we had I don't know, an hour and a half left in the studio time, and they were like, "You got any more songs?" I was like, "Yeah, I got ones." And then there was really no plan about it. I played it for the musicians there in the studio, and they wrote down the charts, and then we just went into the studio and recorded it. So it really wasn't planned in before. It was kind of one of those songs that just fell into place, which I think helped with the beauty and the magic of it.
And that's pretty unbelievable doing one song in one take.
Well, the rhythm section was one take, and then the piano player, he's like, "Let me throw some B3 organ on it," so that was just an overdub, and I think that was the only overdub though. So it's everybody there was just feeling it. So we went
Wow.
with it.
So it's kind of brings it's like a melodic representation of that old saying, "Short, sweet, to the point."
Yeah.
Yeah. And where I'm just curious, where is Mystic Studios in Nashville? Is it off of Broadway?
No, it's over in like the Music Valley area, over by Nashville Palace, scoreboards and all that.
Oh, wow. And is it just a singular, like, recording studio style, or do they have, like, multiple ones that they're recording, other artists are recording at too as well?
I think that's their only location. But yeah, it's a nice studio. It's got plenty of room, full band setup and everything. So it's a great studio.
Oh, wow. Gotta gotta check it out
Yeah,
next time I'm in Nashville.
go to it. Knock on the door.
Knock on the door, be like, "Hey, I have something to record."
Right.
And so, like, yet again, going back to your music, so your album "We Made Fire," so that will be out later this year, and how was that experience in producing that album for you?
Oh, that was great. And so I actually just moved into a house where I'm next door to the producer who produced it and the studio where I recorded it at. So it's it's been great. We've become great friends. Guy named Ken Coomer. Uh,
Mhm,
he was he was a drummer for Wilco, if you remember that group. But anyways, he's got a studio out back of his house, real nice studio. And we had been talking. I've been showing him songs that I've been writing, and he he likes to take songs to a way that I never think to take them. And I'd kind of be nervous or give some pushback, and he's like, "Are you scared?" And I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit about it." And he's like, "Good. That's what you need. You need to be scared." So he was taking them in another direction to where all these songs that I recorded on this album are story songs. So he was adding these elements that would still leave way for the story, but add these
mhm.
crazy elements that would help take it to a different level. So it's definitely country, but it's I guess new age, not borderline experimental. I mean, there's lots of themes in there to where each song is kind of its own planet, but
Mhm,
the central tie-in of every song is it's going to tell a story.
mhm. And is it, um is it like, is it like concurrent, or is each song kind of like a totally different story within itself?
Yeah, it's not like a concept album by any means. Yeah, each story is kind of its own thing, and there are some similar themes with parallels with songs, just with setting. So there's a couple songs that are set in New Orleans. So I mean, there's the setting might be similar, but the the meat of it is different.
Yeah. And not to give too much information away, but is it, like, pretty similar to what you grew up with Marty Robbins and Merle Haggard, or is it something, like, totally new?
Um, in production style, I would say it's not as similar. Still tried to keep the simple storytelling, the bones of it, but I think that just the production values are different and a little more palatable for modern people. I
Mhm.
think that it's kind of borderline indie Americana, you could say,
Okay.
um, to where it might throw some people for a loop, but I like it. So
Yeah. I mean, in from your perspective, though, is that kind of your style that you're thinking of taking your music, or is it kind of like, or is this album just experimental, you would say?
well, yeah, I think experimental might have been the wrong word, but I think it's definitely we try to push the envelope a little bit to perk people's ears up. I think that my style it's still because I'm singing everything, so I guess it's yeah
Mm,
I'm probably the thread through it all, but I think that the style is still country, bluegrass, Appalachian country, whatever. There's so many subgenres you can name, but I,
yeah.
I I think that it's still staying true to that.
Mhm. No, definitely, and that's what I can only speak best to country music, but it seems like depending upon where you're from in the United States, like, you kinda really take those themes and those sounds, and, if you do go the artist route, you really apply that to your music.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I grew up I'm from Texas originally, so Texas country music, like George Strait, Leanne Womack, I remember my mom always used to play Mickey Gilley in the car.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the I don't trying not to age myself, but do you remember the like those 1990s like two-tone Chevy Suburbans? It was like
Oh, yeah. That's what you were riding in?
yeah, I remember
Just
yeah,
all the girls
licking me.
for you at closing time?
Yeah, yeah, Mickey Gilley, but and that's what I thought country music was.
Yeah,
You
mhm.
know, very traditional, kind of like that Marty Robbins, Merle Haggard, but I didn't realize that it's such it's if you were to ask me, like, maybe 20 years ago what country music was, I would have told you that's it, but then now it's really damn near impossible to define what country music is nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to answer that question with the lens of what it sounds like, you're just gonna talk yourself into a circle. It really has to come down to the writing and,
Uh-huh.
if it's invoking a human emotion in you, if it's getting to the core of you, that's what I think country music is. I mean, because there's so many different production styles that you can take one song and it would sound completely different, but it's saying the same thing. And, those kinda go hand in hand, the production and the songwriting, but
Mhm.
as long as it's invoking some type of emotion in you, I think that's what country music is. That's plainly said
Mhm.
to where you don't you don't have a question on what that song is about after you're done listening to it.
Definitely. Well, and it's call me crazy, but it seems like some and I'm, yet again, I'm just saying, saying this just in general sense, not, invoking particular people, but it's like some artists have what would you call it? Like that pool, like they can pull the audience relatively easily into their songs.
Uh-huh.
I will say, I'll backtrack and I'll list some names. Like Lana Del Rey does an excellent job of that.
Yeah.
You can make the argument Taylor Swift, does a great job of that. I would even go, are you familiar with the band Cigarettes After Sex?
No.
So they're very, I would say they're very, what would you call it? Like, are you familiar with the Killers?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like think of like that space rock, but like
Yeah.
the bass version of space rock, like how the Killers can pull like it's what I'm trying to say is it seems like art like some artists just have a natural inclination to just pull their audience in and for them to be emotionally invested in their songs and
Sure,
in their
yeah.
music.
To where if a song has substance, has something other than just flashy beat and flashy words, you're gonna feel something out of that. I think that country folk music, where it all started was, music for the people, the common person. So
Mhm,
I think that just American music in general, from its roots, was started with country folk. There's so many different labels that people can put on it, but
mhm,
you can boil it down to, music by and for the people. So
mhm.
it's kind of
Yep,
American in its own sense.
definitely. And are there other you mentioned a couple of like settings and themes and subjects, but would you say that there are other themes and subjects that are going to be on We Made Fire that people might not be aware of if they listen to your music on streaming platforms such as Apple Music or Spotify?
Yeah, I would say, kind of diving more into a little more, not darker themes, but sad and messed up kind of stories to where still hopefully they'll be gripping enough for the listener. But I think that yeah, I've been putting out a lot of like happy,
Mhm,
fun stuff here recently, and I think that kind of want this album and especially Walter that about to put out will be a little more real life situations that people can relate to that
mhm.
aren't always the happiest, but are meaningful in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. And just to confirm, for the people listening, Walter will not be on the We Made Fire album, correct?
No, yeah, that's correct. Um, I'm putting that out on February 21st, and then We May Fire will be hopefully out this summer.
Wow, and I mean it's February. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I've recorded a bunch last year. About to start on another album, hopefully in the spring or summer, just for next year, and then trying to stay on top of things.
Yeah. You're hauling, Levi.
Try I like to stay busy, keep it up.
S so, yeah, so, going back to, yourself, so you're from a small town outside of Lynchburg, Virginia.
Mhm.
So, how have your experiences in that town molded your style as an artist?
Okay, yeah, so Where I grew up is, really big bluegrass area, kind of Blue Ridge Mountains and all that. And so I started out playing bluegrass when I was real young, going to all these bluegrass festivals with my parents, and they so at bluegrass festivals, if you're not familiar, after all the main acts play throughout the night until even till like 6 in the morning, people are outside of their campsites still playing music, just random people that are playing music. So that's really where I got introduced to playing live, playing and singing live. And so I use a lot of bluegrass elements in my music, whether it's the writing or the actual melodies,
Mhm.
which is something that it's hard for someone like me to escape from because I've just been so steeped in it since a young age, and I don't want to escape from it because I love bluegrass. I always will. But there's so many different elements that of bluegrass that you can implement in country and vice versa that has been done for years. So
Mhm. Wow. And is was there, like, a particular like, growing up, did you have a favorite bluegrass song?
bluegrass song, oh yeah, well it changed every week for me. I mean, I remember getting, getting the Flat and Scruggs CD, the whole Mercury recordings. I'd listen to that front to back all the time. And little girl mine in Tennessee would sing that all the time, and just just stuff like that. Bill Monroe, Larry Sparks,
Mhm.
Jimmy Martin, all those guys, all the traditional bluegrass guys, I gravitated towards, and they would cut each other's songs, so you'd hear the same song four different ways from four different artists. Uh,
Mhm.
just kind of the standards, I'd say.
Wow. And, it's funny, about the state of Virginia is once you go outside of Northern Virginia, which is kind of like the greater DC area, it's a whole other world.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, it's like even like an hour outside of it's like open land basically.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first moved to Nashville, I actually found a guy who is from my same hometown, which is that Rustburg is the name of the town, and he was a songwriter up here, and so I started writing songs with him. And we're just talking about you know Jim's car lot and stuff that only me and him would know. So we're relating to that on a level. We became fast friends that way. And anyways, you can tell someone you meet kind of where they're from, I guess. But it's people from big cities still have small town hearts.
Yeah,
Don't speak for everybody, but
definitely. Well, what's it seems like Nashville is kind of that big small city.
oh yeah,
It's like all of the club promoters, they all know each other, like all of the restaurant owners know each other.
oh
Like,
yeah,
it's like everyone knows each other's weaknesses, which means everyone knows everyone's, business, which like, you know,
uh-huh, yeah. You can't. Rumors will spread fast for
yeah.
sure.
And you can't, it's very hard to hide in those types of environments.
Yeah. So you got to be always be on your best behavior
Yeah, definitely.
and
I
shut
mean,
up.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're going to the same rights too, as well, like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
so, but, but yeah, no, I appreciated that you brought up, moving to Nashville. So you talk about, reading about you talk about taking a risk by moving to Nashville. And so how was that journey for you and like getting acclimated to the music scene in the city?
Sure. Yeah. So when I decided to move up here, I did obviously just like everybody else. I didn't know anybody other than a couple people, and I just started utilizing the people that I did know. Started building relationships with them and not using them, but just trying to learn as much as I could from somebody who's doing the same thing I am.
Mhm.
Try to surround myself with people that are succeeding at it. And so I knew coming up here I wanted to write songs. I didn't necessarily want to play on Broadway and get caught in that scene to where I was just doing covers. I wanted to write and put out my own music. And there's nothing against people that do that. That just wasn't for me. And so yeah, I started hanging out with people that were writing, and then most of the time it's at bars. So I needed to not drink as much because if I'm going to be at bars all the time, I can't stay drunk all the time. You're not going to get nowhere if you do that.
That
So
should be on a t-shirt.
Yeah, right.
That quote. I bet you could actually make some serious money, like, the next time you, like, have a show, like, just have that on a T-shirt or something.
If you're at a bar all the time, you'll get drunk all the time.
Don't get drunk all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That could be a country song within itself.
Could be, yeah. I might write that down.
Song inspiration right here.
A lot of that just comes from conversation too. You never know
Yeah.
what somebody's gonna say.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely.
would try to, yeah, just learn as much as I could. I was like a sponge, just soaking up everybody's, stories about their successes and their mistakes. You learn a lot from what not to do. That's the biggest thing. There's really no answer on what you should do, but there's definite answers on what you should not do. So being drunk at a bar all the time is one of them. But
Yeah. Well, what's the other one I've someone told me was, don't steal songs. I guess that's common sense, but,
don't steal songs. Yeah, that's kind of an unspoken thing, but it'll happen. There's nothing new under the sun, really. There's not too many concepts that you can implement that hasn't already been done in some form or fashion. So, at
Mhm,
some point, you're gonna be stepping on somebody else. But I kind of like how in Nashville, it's especially in the writing scene, it's kind of like a little commune to where everybody's trying to help each other out. At least the experience that I've found, and
mhm,
you'll learn a lot through your peers, and hopefully that um, if you all lean on each other, everybody can win, and that's how it should be. I think that's a good highlight of the Nashville scene is people
yeah,
are in it with each other.
mhm. Yeah, because it's like, you might need they might have a friend in the publishing business, and, if you have a song, then that person can connect you with those publishers. If you
Oh
need a
yeah,
writer, like, it's all connected with each other in some
yes,
way, shape, or form.
very much so. And I'd say that you can have that in any industry, but I think that since this is revolving around music, there's that creative element around it to where it's somehow more personable to
Mhm.
me,
Yeah.
versus some other industry.
And you bring up an interesting point though, because it seems like country music, even though it is a big genre, it's still kind of held on to that family-like
Hmm.
environment. I don't know what it is or how, I'm just curious, like, why do you think that the genre has been able to hold on to that, just given its growth within the last 5 to 10 years?
I mean, it could have, I mean, several like psychological things to it. I mean, it could be something in the sense of when people hear it or relate country music to themselves, it's maybe more back to their childhood, to where they grew
Mm,
up on it, and it hits something that's close to home to them, and they have so much passion in it to where they want to keep it that way.
mhm.
Be my guess, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And, like, it's that and my thought process, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it seems like a lot of it has to do with the fact, like, struggling to make it, which we've all been in situations like that, trying to get that girl that I wanna marry. We've all been down the relationship path. So, one of the things that I do find amazing and is, like, y'all are able to kinda take those simple concepts and then, like, make it into kinda what you were saying, stretch it out however you see fit, which I
Mhm.
think is very cool within itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that people bringing back to what people relate to, and it's kind of more of a common person's music to where you
Mhm.
know, I listen to rap sometimes and I can't relate to it. So, but it's not saying that it's bad, but yeah, anything. I think that's kind of comes down back to the country music being, some type of emotion in the human that it's drawing out of everybody. So
Mhm. Definitely. And I applaud you, moving somewhere where you don't know a lot of people, like, that's a grind within itself.
well, when I got here, I was like, well, I'm gonna cut my costs way down. If I get a full-time job here, I would just move back home. Like that was kind of my ultimatum. Like I'm gonna give everything I got to writing songs and recording songs, figuring out what I need to do that. And so if I said if I got a job like a regular job, then
Mhm.
what am I even doing here? So I I really never thought like, oh, I need to make it. I need to do all this. I mean, I knew I needed to be here because this is where the music was happening, and I knew this is where the songs were being written, and I
Yeah.
just want to be a part of it.
So you literally just ripped the Band-Aid off and was like, "I'm gonna do this."
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a little Ford Transit Connect that I rolled up in here with, and stayed in the back of that thing for like 6 or 7 months at like Walmart parking lots and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
I um, was just riding around trying to find people I could write with, and then I got connected with the guy that was from my hometown and started writing with him and his publishing company. And I mean, just little things. I never thought like, oh, I never freaked out about anything. It's just, you know, my
Mhm.
comfort levels were really low, so I
Yeah.
didn't bother me none. So I was
Yeah.
just writing as much as I could.
Yeah. Well, a Ford Transit Connect, it's is it like the singular, like, bench seat with kind of a low back?
It's a 5.5 foot bed in the back of it, so I had to sleep like diagonally on
Oh,
on my my little air mattress. But I was having the time of my life. I was, writing songs and playing, and it's the American dream.
yeah, yeah. Did you grow up, though, with, like, those trucks that had I call them the bench seat, where it was just one bench and that was
Oh
it?
yeah, uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would this isn't a bench seat, it's kinda like 2 little captain's chairs, and then the cage separates the back from the front, so that's
Oh,
where all like, button-up shirts was on the cage, and then
oh,
I had
wow.
little curtains on the windows so nobody would see me sleeping in there.
It's wild, but, yeah, I think it's funny, like, I think they did away with bench seats because I think it was, like, a safety issue too as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
Because it's like if an accident happens, like, there's no, like I think that was before airbags too started to become mainstream, like,
Yeah.
you're gone, but my mom, it's funny, like, she has a 19, so technically, it's a 65, but it's really like a 64 and a half if you're like that mathematical type of person, but it has, the old, what do you call it, like the push handles that you push out. It kinda has that triangle window and,
Yeah, oh yeah, the old school AC where you flip it around, yeah.
yeah, yeah, has a cigarette lighter in it and, like, I
Does it have the dimmer switch for your headlights, the foot pedal?
I believe it does.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And then it has,
That's
like,
cool.
what do you would call it, like, the handle where you, like, roll the window down.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
So, I'm, like, thinking to myself, "Well, I would really love to drive that car," but my mom's like, "You're not touching that." So, you know, driving that, I feel like I'd be cool, like, just driving around Broadway or
Uh-huh.
Demon Ruin Street, just having
Yeah,
I'd have
demon
the time of my life.
that's what I called it when I moved into town. I thought it's really called Demumbrian, and I would always call it Demon Bruin, and everybody looked at me.
But it
Demon
sounds
Brown or whatever.
yeah, it sounds so much cooler though saying
Yeah,
Demon Ruin Street, but
it fits the vibe of all the bars for sure.
now, is there, like, a particular, like, spot in Broadway that you would totally love to play at?
Oh, and Broadway, I played a couple places down there before. I really prefer, like, Midtown more. There's Live Oak, and, Riley Green has a new place called Duck Blind. It was, Losers, or Winners. It was Winners and Losers, and, there's a spot called The Local. That's probably my favorite place to go to, and that's where I've met a bunch of connections there, was just hanging around at The Local. Um, but yeah, it's a lot more intimate setting. It's a lot more, original music being played, to where it's
Uh-huh.
kind of like a listening room in a sense.
Okay.
People are coming to these songwriter rounds or even full band showcases and hearing new music.
Okay, and what's the acoustics like?
Oh, great. I'm gonna bring up The Local again. That's the best sounding room in town, I think, that I've played. And I know there's better, like the Ryman, but yeah, the acoustics are great. You can hear everything. They got awesome sound engineers that run it for everybody playing. and it's a well old machine that they run.
Definitely. So because I always, if I'm a musician, which I am not, I don't play instruments, but it's like if I go into a new place, that's the one thing that would cross my mind. It's like, how are the acoustics going to sound in this place? Because if the acoustics, if they're good, your audience is going to love you. But if they're bad, it's going to be very hard to get them to come back and see you again.
Exactly, yeah. Same thing with, sound engineers, they can make or break you, if they're not running the board right, and you can't hear the band and you sound like you're singing through a pillow, nobody's going to come back and see you just because somebody wasn't running the board right. I've been very fortunate to where people have done a good job, but it can happen,
Definitely.
so
Well, and I've like, and I know like artists love going to stadiums because they can sell more tickets and, in all of that. But I just find it's very hard because you brought up kind of more intimate settings. It's just very hard. Like sports stadiums are not made for concerts.
yeah. Mhm.
Like you could barely hear the music.
Right. It's more about the experience. I think people like getting drunk with their friends and singing
Yeah.
along to it. 'Cause
Yeah.
you could have the same effect as just the dude go out there and they're just playing his songs on Spotify and he's just running around the stage and people would love it too. So I mean, there's this place for that.
Hmm.
I think that I mean, I'm sure we're one and the same to where we'd much rather see an act in a more intimate setting and
Yeah.
just feel it.
Yeah. Well, I also, the older I've gotten, I don't like people screaming in my ear either.
Oh, yeah, or singing along to where they they're singing way out of key. You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's terrible."
Yeah. I'm like, well, like everyone sounds better when they're like singing in concert than they actually.
Oh, yeah,
So,
uh-huh.
like, I'm just calling a spade when I say that. But
What has been your favorite concert you've been to?
favorite concert? Wow. That is non-country or country?
Any, don't matter.
Okay, so there's 2 that I off the top of my head. One of them is Stromae, who is a Belgian artist. He's all it's all in French. So, I mean, I speak French, so I can
That's
understand what
cool.
he says.
Yeah.
But I did see the last country music concert I did see was, Kenny Chesney. It was Memorial Day weekend, and he was bringing he had, I don't know what the technical term is, but he had like multiple artists come with him. So he had like Uncle Cracker did a little, they did a little set. Um, Zach Brown Band did a mini
Cool.
set. And actually that was when Megan Maroney was doing kind of that live drip release of her latest album that came out recently.
Yeah.
So she played like a mini set on it too as well. Um, but no, it was great. Like obviously I was there to see Kenny, but it's
Mhm.
amazing to me just how he was able to command a stage.
Wow, yeah. I haven't seen him live, but I've heard good things for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like it's funny because you like the generational people um that like represented like the audience. So it's like Uncle Cracker, all of the older people would stand up and clap. Zach Brown band, you know, kind of the less older, but like people more my age, everyone would clap.
Uh-huh.
Megan Maroney, all of the young people would clap. And then like, Kenny Chesney, everyone would jump up and like scream. But it was kind of funny just seeing that. And it's like, you know, I mean, I was kind of like, I'm in that same generation for all of them, but I was like, do I stand? Do I clap? So I was like, oh, I'll just stand for who I know and just clap for Kenny. How about that? Just call it a day. So, but yeah, but no, it was a great concert, I will say. But because the stage, what is it? So the stage was facing like this way, and then you had people sitting on one side.
Mhm.
So I mean, and I was diagonal to the stage up on like the club level. So what is that, like mid tier? I don't know what that would be equal to on the Titan Stadium.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I mean, this you could hear the sound. Don't get me wrong, but it's like hearing the lyrics. That's kind of when it got harder because it's
Yeah.
like the further away you are, and it has, from my understanding, it's like the sound has to work that much harder for it to like actually reach the audience the further that away
Oh,
they are.
yeah. For it to be clear, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, for it to be clear, definitely. So I'm like,
Mm.
there are some artists that I'm like, yeah, I'll spend, hundred and something dollars on their tickets, and then it's like some of them I'm like, why would I ever want to spend 100 and something dollars on this? It's like this is like why?
Yeah,
But yeah, that's for me. The older I've gotten, I've gotten like very picky on who I actually want to see live.
yeah,
So the artists that I really want to see live, um, that I haven't gotten the chance to see, I would love to see Luke Bryan live.
Oh, cool, okay, yeah, yeah.
So if I had to say like my next, if I had to like name one, that would be him. So
Yeah,
now probably I don't know where, like what venue, but like if it's Luke Bryan's playing, then I'm a happy person. So because
nice.
I really like his I grew up on that traditional sounding voice, kind of like that George Strait
Uh-huh.
style. So that's kind of what I really enjoy. And he's also a great writer too, as well, from all of the
Mhm.
albums that he's made.
Oh, yeah. Are you where in the country you still living in Texas?
So I'm actually based here in DC now.
Oh, nice, okay. Right
So
on.
yeah, so I'm like, for me, it's I'm actually, full disclosure, I'm actually a writer, so, or songwriter in quotation marks. So I like to write
Nice.
stuff and kind of see what works, what doesn't work, and really take it from there. You know, I actually got into the country music scene, and I'll say this on this podcast, was I was, you know, I had a situation happen to me, and I'm like, well, I can't just wallow in it all the time. So I'm like, why don't I just write stuff down? And it's amazing when you just write things down, where that can really take you.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's why th therapists prescribe that to their patients all the time. They're like, "Write all your feelings down," and
Yeah,
it works,
it
so
does.
you can channel any emotion into, just you're releasing it, into something, turning
Mm,
a negative into a positive, I think
mhm,
that's a beautiful thing, so good for you,
definitely.
man. Great.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it. And, what does country music mean to you, and how do you want to contribute to this genre?
Um, you know, we kept talking about, keeping things traditional and everything, and I think you can play with the production, but keeping the sense of, being something genuine that can invoke some type of emotion. I think just people are yearning for something real, something with substance.
Mm,
That's what that's kind of my code I like to stick to when I'm writing, at least. Is this real? Like, would I say this in real life, or would I do this in real life?
mhm,
Because if that's the answer, then when you're singing it, you're gonna add so much emotion to it, and you're gonna convince people that even more that it is real.
mhm. Well, and is it when you go into a recording session and you're recording your song, does it, even though the lyrics, you're like, this is me, this is Levi Foster, but like, have there been instances where it's like when they combine certain guitars and drums, you're like, yeah, this isn't me, but once you strip that all out, you're like, okay, like what rhythm is going to represent this song, and then that way I can be true to myself in the process of recording this.
Right? Yeah, I think any instrumentation, not everybody's gonna like exactly what you produce or put out in the music side. Um, But I think if you yourself as the singer and the artist are still staying true to your own vocal style, your own writing style, I think that counts for something. Because I firmly believe people should try stuff that's different and see what works. Not everybody's gonna like it, but if
Mhm.
you do, that's great. And you can even release it another way. There's so many people now that do acoustic versions or alternate versions of their own songs. So
Mhm.
I kind of did that already, but I'm probably planning on doing that again, just because it's you can tell the same story in a different way or different actors.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have, we've talked about Walter, we've talked about We Made Fire. Are there any other upcoming shows, projects, writers rounds that you want people to know about?
Sure, yeah. February 17th, doing my friend Court Taylor's round at Live Oak, and she's one of the writers on Walter. It's called The Courtroom, and It's at Live Oak on February 17th. I think it starts at 6 p.m. But also doing a benefit concert March 20th that will be upstairs at Live Oak. That is a benefit concert. We're raising money for the Alzheimer's Foundation for the release of Walter and everything. And so we're trying to give back to the Alzheimer's Foundation and kind of spread awareness because this disease is awful and it affects
Mhm.
so many people in this country and across the world. So anything we can do to kind of help our community because the Alzheimer's Foundation is actually headquartered in Nashville. So they've been kind enough to partner with us and really looking forward to that. Have some friends out playing, have a round within it. So it's be a 3-4 hour event. Have a bunch of artists and I'm gonna sing a couple songs and have some friends and gonna be a good time.
Yeah, awesome. And do you don't tell us your set list, but do you have your set list prepared for the event?
I really don't go with a set list most of the time. I'll just kind of call out songs, but yeah, I have a rough idea of what I'm going to play. It's all going to be original music. Yeah, everybody that's playing will be doing original music.
Okay.
So
No covers allowed.
well, no, I'm not going to say all that, but maybe not like Wagon Wheel or something, but you can do a cover if it's a cool one, I guess.
I've heard Wagon Wheel way too many times.
Oh yeah,
Great song. I loved
great
the
song.
production.
Yeah, kind of
But
wish I wrote it. Nothing bad against that.
yeah, do you ever think to yourself, you're like, damn, I wish I wrote that?
5 times a day. What do you mean? Yeah, of course I do.
I was like, but yeah. And where can people find out more about you, Levi, and listen to your music?
Sure, yeah. So I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Levi Foster, and my website. I put my shows up there and kind of links to merchandise and a little bio thing. It's levifostermusic.com. Yeah, I'd say that's the best way to figure out is my website.
Awesome. And be sure to subscribe to Down in the Country podcast YouTube channel, as also listen to the audio version of this interview on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Levi, thank you again so much again for your time today.
Thanks for having me, man. Enjoyed it.
Awesome. This is Dylan Reed signing off.